What's going on, Consciouztv? Your favorite breakdown commentator, CTV. Welcome to another riveting episode of the Consciouztv platform. You already see what we're here to talk about. Before we do so, go ahead and thumbs up the video until it's absolutely stuck. Shout out to all of the new subbies. We're on our way to 51.7. Make sure that you have your notification bell set to all. And last but not least, please share the stream out to whatever it is you have digital community, whether that be your YouTube community wall, your Facebook, your Instagram, your Snapchat, the dark side of Twitter, Tumblr, or your personal OF. I don't really give a damn where you lay the link. Just let them whores know that we're live, and we're certainly in color. And with no further ado, let's go ahead and push on through.
I know a place where you can recharge your soul.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
And in the midst of brokenness, he gon' see your asshole.
Baby, that's Consciouztv.
You gon' heal, you gon' laugh and catch a little shade.
Ooh, girl.
Y'all know he be slaying, y'all better stop playing. Come hear what he's saying.
Ladies and gentlemen.
All right, Grand Rising. Let me speak to the early birds in the building. Grand Rising, Sherry. Grand Rising, both of my sins. Grand Rising, Sadie. Grand Rising, Miss Eve. Grand Rising, Nurse Moonshine. What's going on, Miss Daniel? Hey, boo. What's going on, Thundercats? Grand Rising, Tanika. Grand Rising, Melanated Drip. Grand Rising, Taryn. Divine Rising, Junebird on period. So I don't want to keep you guys here super long. But I did want to just come and just talk and get some of this stuff out there into the airwaves. As you guys can see, the title of the video is What Nobody Tells You About Ascension and Transcending the Matrix, the Disciplines, the Turmoil, and ultimately the Rebirth. Grand Rising, Bree. Grand Rising, Sam. You guys know a little bit about my journey. For those of you who have been following me for some time, you guys know that my real call to incarnation is spiritual development and spirituality. This is something that I am going to be spending the next half of my life unfolding and creating and evangelizing out into the world. You guys know that I've been working on some books. I've been working on some spiritual projects. I've been kind of preparing for this second wave, the second half of my life, which I want to spend as an author. I want to spend as a teacher, as a guru, traveling the world, doing workshops around personal development, around mysticism, around occultism, etc. And I can already feel the pull. I can already feel the pull and the pull and the pull. I have no idea where the online personality aspect of myself is going to fall when I fully step into that next aspect of my career. But I'm going to keep an open mind. I'm not going to say there's going to be no more Hot Topic CTV. I'm not going to say that there's going to be no more of the entertainment version of CTV, because I tend to be a pretty versatile, well-balanced individual. So I'm pretty sure that all of that is going to be there. I just don't really have any idea about how it's going to kind of be integrated into what I'm going to be doing next in my life. With that being said, I want to talk about some of the things that I've been feeling and just kind of where my state of consciousness is. Talk about kind of the man CTV or the man Davion, not so much as the personality Consciouztv, which are two distinct individuals. Okay, the personality, the persona Consciouztv is what you guys see here. It's in your face, it's explosive, it's controversial, It's entertaining. It's high energy. It's just all of those wonderful things that make the platform what it is. And then you have the deeply complex, introverted, studious, intellectual, deeply contemplative, loving person, Davion. And Davion is in an interesting place in my life. Davion is the one who reversed type 2 diabetes. Davion is the caretaker to my community. Davion is the martyr to my community. You know, I was about to say, where in the did that music come from? It's coming from me. It's too early for this, okay? And Davion is feeling in a lot of ways like I'm expanding in consciousness. I'm expanding in becoming. I am transmuting. I am transforming. And the more that I transform and the more that I transmute, the more foreign I really feel amongst society, amongst culture. I am personally just outgrowing the culture at rapid light speeds. I probably have never really felt this personally disconnected from culture, felt this deeply disconnected from society, felt this deeply disconnected from everything, really. I was just talking to a close compadre of mine a few nights ago, and I was telling her that I feel the only thing that I feel clear about is myself, but every time that I look outside of myself, everything just looks blurry. Everything looks like one big glitch. The only thing that feels sure and that feels absolute and that feels clarified to me is me. But when I look outside of myself, it looks like a picture that's trying to come into focus that never really does ever come into focus. And so that has really kind of made me a big recluse at this point in time in my life. I don't really deal with people in that capacity. I have a inner circle that is so small that it might as well be non-existent. I have no family ties at this point in my life and haven't had any in about 6 years. And we're going to talk a little bit about that too. And I have just been in a place of isolation and kind of incubating. And to be honest, I think I even might have developed a smidget of a phobia when it comes to people. And not fear as in fear, but fear as in I'm not in a place where I'm willing to come down just to have the company of others anymore. I'm not interested in accommodating people's egos. I'm not in the business of shrinking myself or reducing myself just to belong anywhere. I have more of a allegiance to my authentic self and to my highest self. And it doesn't mean as much to me anymore to really have community and or to have any type of structured family. I've been at home for the most part, just kind of orbiting, just kind of orbiting out into the vastness of space, feeling almost like I am observing humanity from the outside or from the fourth wall or from this like double glass window where I'm not participating. I'm more so just observing and having more of a passive experience. And not even in terms of people anxiety, Tam Leo, because I'm not like and that's why I said like afraid, but not afraid. Like I'm not afraid of people in the sense that I have any anxiety. But I'm just not finding or have not found anything or anyone that intrigues me. I'm not impressed. I'm not compelled. I'm not attached. I'm not any of those things. And I am like deeply involved in my own humanity. And I've never really been a small talk kind of a person. I don't really develop associations. Any and all relationships in my life have been very meaningful relationships. I'm not somebody that invests in shallow interactions with people. And I'm not interested in the surface living. And that's kind of where most people are at this point. But we'll get into that a little bit more. So let me tell you about some things that kind of like were interesting to me. And this is where things are going to get hella deep. So pay attention. So as I told you guys, I have kind of emancipated myself from my relatives. And to make a very long story short, I, being a super empath, you know, we always attract the opportunity to be of service. You know, we're always in demand because there's always somebody in need. So I ended up being called to take care of my grandfather when he kind of entered into the last stage of his life with dementia, and my grandmother wasn't able to take care of him because she is elderly herself. And like most families, most people, of course, everybody loves to do the easy work. You know, people love to do things and contribute in ways that don't cost them, that don't really feel like a sacrifice to them, that don't really cause them to sweat. But nobody wants to really ever do the real labor. Nobody really wants to get dirty. You know, the field is plentiful, but the laborers are definitely few. And I've always been somebody, and maybe that is the empathic aspect of myself. Maybe that is the Scorpion empathic aspect of myself. You know, we're deeply loyal people. We're deeply passionate people. We have a deep sense of humanity. We have an extreme capacity for love and for charity, etc. So for me, I've never been afraid of doing the hard parts. I've never been afraid of having to really love people. I've never been afraid to really have to take care of people, even if it costed me economically, even if it sometimes costed me spiritually, costed me emotionally. I've just never been afraid, because that one of the gifts I feel I actually have is the gift of love. So when my grandparents needed me, they needed me to step in. I was kind of one of the only people to say yes, and I was actually chosen and picked out of a lineup of a trillion damn relatives to be that person, which I at the time was low-key impressed by, because you know, I was in my mid-30s. I was in my early 30s, mid-30s, and there were people much older than me, much more seasoned than me, who I felt like, optically speaking, should have been more ripe for the job. But here it is. You know, I was actually one of the youngest candidates to be chosen for something like that. And I thought it was interesting that I was even asked to do something so sacrificial at such a prime time in my own life. You know, in your 30s, baby, you know, you still are two shits to the wind. You're carving out your career. Hell, at this point, you might even be embarking upon creating your own family and just really getting serious about your own business. And so it was interesting that even beyond all that, I was still particularly and specifically sought out to commit myself to such a thing. And it was a fucking commitment. Let me tell you something. There's no faint of heart about being a caretaker, baby. And my grandfather was pretty incapacitated, and he pretty much needed round the clock service. He needed to be bathed, he needed to be fed, he needed to be cooked for, he needed to be groomed, he needed to be put into bed, taken out of bed, he needed to be taken to doctor's appointments. And so, you know, this was a whole live-in commitment. And at the time, I was actually in a very serious relationship to someone I was really in love with. And we actually had plans of buying our first home together, etc. And I chose to put a halt to that relationship in order to focus on supporting my family. And I'm lining all this up because you guys are going to see like why this is important, and it's going to make sense. And I end up sacrificing my relationship in order to be present in my commitment to my grandparents. So taking care of my grandfather lasted for about 4 years. Was it about 4 years? Let me see. Hold on. About 6 years, actually. It lasted for about 6 years. It was very difficult, and not even in taking care of my grandfather was the difficult part. I actually found so much joy in being able to be there for my grandfather at a time where he could not do for himself, because my grandfather, like most grandfathers, he was the rock of the family. You know, he was the person that came through for everybody. My grandfather also was not perfect. He was abusive to my grandmother. He was violent to his children. He ruled with an iron fist and ran his household that way, as most men of his generation did. Papa was definitely a Rolling Stone. Papa was definitely a fucking narcissist, stubborn, judgmental, assertive, extremely dominant. But like most men of his generation, he was also very much so a provider. And he was stable and consistent in that way. And my grandfather, on the positive end, he had a great sense of humor. He could be very sweet at times. He could be very caring at times. So there was that duality that was there. But for me as his grandson, I had never personally experienced any of the negative aspects of my grandfather, but I had lived adjacent to seeing certain things happen between him and my grandmother. I had bared witness to experiences that other people had with my grandfather, and I was kind of aware of my grandfather's upbringing and just the way he moved as a man, the way he moved as a husband, the way he moved as a father. But personally, me and my grandfather always had a very, very loving relationship. I was very close to my grandparents on both sides of my family. They pretty much acted like alternative dads and moms, even though I had my mother and father in my own life. And so I was very close to my grandparents, had a very loving, fun relationship to my grandparents. And my granddad would, you know, I would spend a night to him in my grandma's house, and he would always jump out and scare me and scared the shit out of me. You know, he was just a very fun grandfather. Now, that might have been very different from how he was as a father to his own kids, but as a granddad, you know, he was pretty dope. So I took a lot of pride in being able to, you know, support my grandmother, to support him and his coming down with dementia that eventually turned into Alzheimer's and that eventually claimed his life. But it was the experience of my relatives that made taking care of my grandfather so miserable for me. Under normal circumstances, I would have been able to control, you know, when I was available to my relatives and the capacity in which I'm available to my relatives. But because I was doing a job, it made me very accessible to my relatives. And therefore, a lot of their chaos and dysfunction is something that I unfortunately had to inherit by force. And it was a very depressing, deeply frustrating time for me. Because of all of the different dynamics and a lot of the different fucking issues and a lot of the various adversities that manifested all up and around the caring for my grandfather, the drama with his children, my aunts, my uncles. It was just a lot of mess that under normal circumstances, I would not have been available for. I would have been living in my fucking igloo, and I would have been answering my phone when I felt like it. I would have been answering my door when I felt like it. I would have been making myself available when I felt like it. But because I was doing a job as a caretaker, I was just put in the eye of the storm. And that lasted for 6 years, and it made me miserable. And it actually made me so miserable that that's what ended up leading to my appendage rupturing. And because I'm empathic, I internalize things very, 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 very deeply, to the point that I can literally change my physiological state. Because I have a great capacity for joy, but I have a great capacity for darkness. If I'm not channeling energy the right way, and if I'm not really up on my energetic health, I'm not up on my spiritual health, that can be a catastrophe for someone like me. And it has been for a lot of empaths in my life who have not been able to align themselves properly, who have not been able to prioritize their self-care. And as a result of them not being able to be grounded as empaths, they were unconscious empaths, they were traumatized empaths. Those things showed up in early deaths for a lot of them. It showed up in heart issues, it showed up in hypertension, it showed up in all type of health issues, it showed up as dementia, it showed up as all of these things. And for me, coming from a long line of empaths and super empaths, I too had that spiritual gift of empathy. And when I lack empathy for myself, I can put myself on the deathbed inadvertently. And that's what had happened with my appendix rupturing, which was due to stress. Stress literally ruptured my appendix. I had to have emergency surgery. And this is where shit is going to get spicy. The type of unconscious relatives that I had were the kind of people who they pull on you for your power, they pull on you for your love, they pull on you for your sacrifice, they pull on you for your attention, they pull on you for your vitality, they pull on you, and they pull on the best aspects of who you are. But they don't do anything substantive with those aspects of yourself. They don't take any of the stepping stones that you're providing for them through your input, through your availability, through your charity, and do anything transformative for themselves in return. Instead, they just end up operating, and probably without intention, as just parasitic. And they just feed and feed and feed and feed from you while going nowhere at all. And you just end up acting as a host for their energetic, parasitic appetite. And this is what led to me having a deeply growing frustration with them, because I didn't even mind being the superhero. I didn't mind doing the Iyanla fix their life thing. I didn't mind being a vessel. I didn't mind being a messenger. I didn't mind, because I know that that's what I came into this world to do to begin with. I am a healer. I am a light worker. I've come to make things better. I've come to be utilized in this way, but utilized in a substantive way. I've not come to exist in vain. I have not come to just show up for you to just ride my coattail and just ride my back and just ride my energy for the sake of just riding it because it's convenient and it's available. I'm there like any other stepping stone is for you to take that opportunity, and you hit the ground and you run. But I wasn't being utilized that way. I was being utilized in pure vanity. In pure vanity. And this caused so much chaos, because once I realized that I was being used in vain, and I was being used in a shallow sense, I started to knuck and buck against that. I also tried to deepen helping them to see the error of their ways. I deepened my commitment to try to help them to obtain the alignment I knew that they were unconsciously trying to manifest. And the more I deepened my efforts to assist them, the worse it got, actually. The darker it got, the more chaotic it got, the more drama-filled it got. And then it resulted in one day I had already started having some issues in my hold on, what's the term? Let me get the term. So what's the chakra that I'm looking for? Hold on. There's a chakra system that I'm looking for. I'm rusty on my chakra shy. Let me see. Where's my chakra system at? Hold on, I'm coming, shy. Trying to look at this damn chart. My sacral chakra, which is and represents the vitality, the self-gratification, and passion. The sacral relates to reproduction on a physical level, creativity and joy, and relationships on a emotional level, and our energy and passions on a spiritual level. This had become completely disrupted because of all these fucking leeches that were just superficially sucking my energy and my aura completely to the pits. So one day, while I was preparing to actually leave my grandfather's house, because this was a live-in job, a live-in service, and it was my morning to go back home after my weekend duties, I was washing his clothes out in the garage, because my grandfather has like a garage to his home or whatever, and that's where the laundry room is and all of that, child. So I was out there, and I took one step on the single step that leads from the garage back to the kitchen into the house, and I heard my appendix pop. Okay, now let me kind of back up a little bit. I had already started feeling and started having some issues as a result of my stress in my sacral that had ended up with me going to the hospital. The doctor couldn't find anything. The doctor was like, well, I don't see anything on the x-ray. Everything looks fine. So I'm just going to give you some IVs and just make sure that you're hydrated, make sure that you have your electrolytes, da, 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 da. So I ended up feeling better. But because I was under stress and I did not know how to regulate the stress, because the stress was consistent, it was imminent, I ended up not being able to regulate. So I ended up having a dream 2 nights before my appendix finally ruptured. And I had a dream that I was in this long, lengthy bathroom with a red centaur, which is a half man, half horse. And he was bloodshot red. And I was trying to leave the restroom, and he wouldn't allow me to leave the space. And he told me that the only way that I could leave is if I had covenanted with him. And as a result of being afraid and being terrified, I allowed the centaur, this mythological being that was really, in fact, a incubus that was personifying itself as a centaur for whatever reason. I allowed it to coven with me, and it essentially raped me. So when I woke up from this dream, I knew something had manifested spiritually. I knew that all the stress had opened up officially some type of a vortex to make myself accessible to whatever forces were already on the other side. And because I was enduring stress, my firewall was being compromised. My spiritual immune system was being compromised, which was allowing all of these lower forces to now start coming through the veil and really manifesting and kicking shit off in my life, in my surroundings, in my space, etc. So when I woke up from that dream, I knew, okay, something has happened. I have definitely been infiltrated, and I've literally been penetrated now by the enemy. And because it was such a high stressed time, and there was so much going on, I didn't have time to really sit in that, because once again, like the stress and the responsibilities and everything that was on my plate, it was just everything from every direction. And that's also a tactic for the enemy. The enemy a lot of times will amplify the distractions in your life so that you can't pay attention spiritually, so that you can't and don't feel like you have the time to regulate yourself and to focus yourself and to pour into yourself and to be introspective to make sure that you're on the trajectory that you intended to be on. And that was working. That militant tactical tactic was working, because I was running around with my head cut off at that time, and the enemy was totally taking advantage of the areas of myself that I wasn't paying as much attention to, that you actually need to when you're under a great deal of profound stress and you're carrying a very heavy load. I know it's natural for us to kind of get caught up in the vacuum of the bullshit, but that's actually the time where you need yourself the most. That's the time where you need spirit the most. That's the time where you need self-actualization the most. And I had almost completely abandoned that and got side swiped, and my car is, you know, metaphorically just upside down on the side of the road. So I had that dream. 2 days later, I am getting ready to go home, and I am preparing laundry. I put my foot right up on the step leading to the kitchen from the garage, from the laundry room back to the house, and I heard my appendix go. Like, I literally heard it just completely sever. I collapsed, and I immediately, I was like vexed with the worst physical pain I have ever felt in my entire life. From there, I was just trying to figure out how in the fuck am I going to get to my phone? How am I going to get help? Now, mind you, let me fill in this a little bit, right? I had a cousin who was also living in my grandfather's home at that time. He had become a permanent resident in my grandfather's home. I was the one that helped him to move in after he had been allowed to move in by my grandmother. Matter of fact, he had transitioned from her home to my grandfather's home. So he was in the house and he was in his room. But because I am such a like do-it-yourself person, the only thing I could think of, despite me knowing he was in the house, was to get to my phone. Like, to get to my phone. Like, even in my time of like being totally compromised, being totally vulnerable, and it's now completely appropriate for me to cry out and to rely on somebody else, I'm still thinking with a purely independent mind. So instead of me like screaming and hollering out at this point, my focus now is generating all the strength I need to get to my phone, which is all the way in the back part of the house. I will have to crawl through the kitchen, crawl through the living room, crawl all the way down to the back room, hit a hard left, reach up, get my phone off of the couch. And that's exactly what the fuck I did. I literally was belly crawling. I couldn't even walk. I was belly crawling. Now, mind you, this cousin is also a cousin that was like a brother to me. We were like essentially raised, you know, in Pampers together. Our mothers were actually the closest of the aunts. And, you know, my whole childhood is filled with memories involving him. Shared birthdays, every other weekend, you know, he's spending the night to our house. You know, I'm over there spending a night to his house. You know, this is a very, very tight-knit, close relationship. I'm belly crawling. Now, I crawled past it because I have to crawl past his room to get to the room where my phone was. His room door is wide open. He's on the bed watching TV. He sees me belly crawling. He sees me, hears me huffing and puffing. But for some reason, at that point, I couldn't even bring myself to like cry out in distress. I was just so fixated and focused on doing for myself in that moment. So I'm just like focused. I'm belly crawling. I get to my phone, get to the back of the house, call 911. I let them know, hey, something has happened. I can't walk. Something's going on with my stomach. And I'm going to have to find a way to open the front door. I'm telling the 911 dispatcher this because my grandfather has dementia. We had to put a makeshift lock on the door that allowed us to like lock the door from the inside. Like, that took a special key. Meaning so that even if my grandfather would wake up in the middle of the night and sometimes he would attempt to like go outside in the middle of the night, he couldn't because he didn't have the key to unlock the whatchamacallit lock that we had installed. So now I was going to have to fucking muster all the strength to, a childproof lock. So now I was going to have to muster all the fucking strength to belly crawl my ass from the back of the house. Now, mind you, I am feeling this catastrophe all in my stomach, all throughout my fucking body. I'm fevering up. I am just in the most extraordinary, unbelievable, unfathomable physical pain I've ever felt in my entire life. But now I've just called 911, and these niggas are not going to have any way to get into this house unless I also somehow magically, supernaturally manage to also get the key, unlock the front door for the EMT, and then lay my ass out there and wait for these folks to pull up. But that's exactly what the fuck I did. I belly crawled my ass from the back of the house back to the front of the house. Now, at this point, all hell is breaking loose for me because I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I am panicked. I am in severe pain. I am totally in distress. Belly crawled my way to the front of the house. I successfully unlocked the front door, leave it open, and then I just lay my ass out there in the living room waiting for EMT. Now, mind you, my cousin, who I was raised up with, he's younger than me, but he gets up. He goes to the restroom, which is right across the hall from his bedroom. He looks at me. He uses the restroom. Then he comes out of the restroom. He looks at me, laid out on that floor. Pretty much at this point, now I'm pretty much screaming, I'm moaning, I'm groaning. Obviously, something very fucked up has just happened. You can now at this point also hear the EMT. You can hear the ambulance in the distance. He looks at me and he goes right into his room, leaves the door open, lays back down in his bed to watch TV as I am fighting for my entire life this entire time. Even when the EMT showed up, they come get me, they pull up, they bring in a stretcher, they put me on the stretcher, and all this is going on inside the house now. My cousin never comes out to see what's going on. Never once through this whole ordeal asked me, did I need anything? What is wrong? Called 911 for me. Never made a single accommodation. And I could have literally died if God had not given me the strength, as spirit had not given me the will to assert myself. And now that I'm thinking about this, the reason why my instincts was to fight for my life is because spirit already knew that's exactly what I was going to have to do. There was going to be no help, even though there was a fully competent and available human being in that same space to have helped me. So it's a good thing that I stuck to my ambition and that I stuck to my will. And I pushed myself through this whole ordeal and fought for myself through and through, which is the only fucking reason why I was able to finally get help and be transferred to the hospital to have emergency surgery. And let me tell y'all, everything about that day was meant to kill me. Every single thing about that day was meant to fucking take my life. The enemy was literally trying to kill me. KIL in all caps, full explanation, because that ain't even where the worst of it ends. Not only did I have somebody pretty much step over my agonized body and go sit their ass back down in bed without even as much as offering me a cup of water. But once I got to the hospital, do you guys know they put me in a room? They put me through testing, came back and told me, hey, Mr. Augustus, your appendix has ruptured. You're going to go into emergency surgery. They might have given me 2 pain pills. And from there, do you guys know I sat in a dark, cold hospital room down the hall for 12 fucking hours. Mind you, I was in need of emergency surgery. My appendix had completely ruptured out. All the stuff that was organized in my stomach has now just exploded in my body. And I am sitting in a hospital room, in a dark room by myself. There's no emergency button. I can't even walk. So I would not have even been able to get to the door to even seek a nurse's or doctor's help if I had needed it. I sat in that dark ass room for a whole 12-hour period. The sun literally came up and the sun went all the way down before I finally saw a nurse again to say, we are ready to take you into emergency surgery. This was 11 hours later. 11 hours later. So now they get me all prepped up for surgery. But guess what happens? And this is a part about the devil. The enemy wanted me dead on that day, and it tried to delay and stall and prohibit everything that was meant to restore my life that day. Because even once they came and got me from a hospital room, after already being there for 11 hours in need of emergency surgery, guess what happens? The doctor, my surgeon, who is supposed to come and do the surgery, is now completely derailed because he's got called to another hospital and pretty much had to abort my surgery to go attend to an even more pressing matter. So now the nurses are telling me, okay, Mr. Augustus, we got everything on the way. We're just trying to find you a doctor. Another 2 hours passed, baby, before these damn people. And finally, they find me another doctor, another surgeon in the middle of the night. Finally comes. They put me under. I go into surgery. The next thing I remember is waking up with tubes down my throat, oxygen mask on my face, all type of equipment, girl. I'm plugged up like fucking Voltron. Which took the pain level to a whole nother level, because the surgeon had told me that my pain would not immediately cease just because I had the surgery, because now I had an angry gut and my gut was going to need time to finally situate itself, which could happen over a day's worth of time. It could happen over a week's worth of time, but that the gut would eventually situate itself. I would just have to wait it out. So now I've had the surgery to repair the appendix issue, but now I have this angry fucking gut, which to me, it was actually worse pain than the actual rupture of the appendix. And now that's amplified because I have all these fucking tubes in my throat, up my fucking nose, and there's just all of that. It was pure bona fide hell, y'all. Pure bona fide hell. Now let me speed up because I survived all that like a bad bitch does, okay? Survived all of it, baby. Here thriving, here to tell all about it, okay? But the enemy wanted my fucking life. It wanted my whole life, and it did everything to claim my life within a 14-hour period, from possess somebody who loved me and had them move. I haven't hired legal counsel, Jim Man News, because I didn't know it was I didn't know that it was malpractice. And then when I spoke to a nurse, they told me that it wasn't per se malpractice either. I don't, I don't know. At the time, I just didn't know, what it was. I had not been somebody that had been in. I'm somebody who had before my appendix, I had only been hospitalized once, and that was when I was like 9 and had cut my knee on some glass and had stitches. I wasn't somebody who had ever been sick in my life. I had not been, you know, used to hospitals and doctors, and so this was like literally just not my world. And because of everything that I was going through at the time, it didn't even dawn on me that anything was malpractice. I just knew what I had experienced, and then all of my focus and attention just went back on to trying to heal, trying to get myself together. And then, mind you, like, I got a grandfather that, you know, is in need of my service, and there's all this family drama that I'm vortex in. So my mind was just elsewhere. I didn't even think about the hospital once they had did what they had to do for me and sent my ass home eventually. But I will speak to a attorney to talk to them about what I had experienced to see what they do have to say. But at that time, I did not in any way, you know, just it didn't even dawn on me that there was any malpractice. When was this? This was years ago. This was years ago. This had to be about what my grandfather has been deceased now since my grandfather been deceased about what, almost 5 years now. My appendix probably then had to be, I was still on Facebook at that time, so my appendix, this had to be about 7 years ago. It was a while ago. It was a while ago. It had to be about 7-8 years ago. Why is YouTube autocorrecting live into love? Live is a real word. Shaking my head. I'm not really sure, doggy, why that's transpiring. You're up early. I know I'm so up early because I just had all the stuff on my mind, you know, and I wanted to share kind of where I am, because the reason why I told you guys this is now you're going to understand like why I separated from my family, because what happened now as a result of that situation with my cousin not interceding on my behalf at all is my grandmother, you know, who is the matriarch at that point. You know, she is the authority at that point. You know, she was still in need of my services. And of course, I had every plan on returning back to help to continue to take care of my grandfather after I healed from my appendix surgery. But what was very bizarre to me, right, is that when everybody found out what had happened, you know, of course, there was all this upsetness and everybody was just happy that I was, you know, okay and alive. But everybody had a lot to say about my cousin. Everybody had a lot to say about him to me, but not near one of my relatives ever confronted my cousin. Not near one of them ever said, "What in the fuck is wrong with you? You know, how dare you? How could you not help Davion? How could you have watched this whole fucking production play out?" And my grandmother, out of all people, this was her home. Even though my grandmother and my grandfather lived separately, the house that I was caring for my grandfather was the childhood home that her and my grandfather owned and had purchased together. And so my grandmother, you know, she had the authority to regulate the house, to decide if the house would be sold, if the house would be kept in the family. No, she had all of that creative control. And she was the one who had greenlit my cousin even moving in to my grandfather's house where I was caring for him at. I expected my grandmother, as a result of knowing that I had been absolutely and utterly forsaken and abandoned and had been left for dead by one of my closest relatives who lived in that house, I expected her to get all up inside of that shit. I expected that from her more than I expected it even from my other relatives who were acting so outraged about the whole ordeal personally, but had never actually brought themselves to confront the situation head on. There was never a family meeting. There was never a congressional hearing that was had. There was never any direct confrontation from them to this person. And so the whole time that I was recovering at home from my surgery, I was thinking to myself, like, I'm not comfortable going back into that space because I don't know why I was forsaken. I don't know why this person did not help me. I'm the person, I grew up with this person. I helped this person to move into my grandfather's house. I helped them to pack all their shit and transmute and transport their ass to my grandfather's home. Like, I could not conceive. Me and this person have never been through anything. Ain't never been no money issues. Never been no I done slept with your bitch issues. Ain't never been no nothing. Nothing. So the fact that I was literally just left for dead without any intervention from this person that I grew up with and have known since we were infants was bewildering. And I didn't even want to know the why, because there was going to be no justifiable substantive why. The only thing I knew is I'm not living part-time or partially with someone who had it in them to see me in my most vulnerable and to see me in deep need and could look at me and go off and watch cartoons instead. I'm not going back into that space. And I was sure that at the very least, my family was going to get involved, choke this motherfucker up, go hard for me. Since everybody apparently was so outraged, everybody apparently was so angry, everybody had expressed all this, oh my God, what the fuck is wrong, blah, 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 what? Like, everybody had so much feeling, everybody had so much of an emotional response, but yet there was no physical, materialized, righteous confrontation of what one relative had did to another relative. And this is about as extreme of a situation that it can get. This is one of those manifestations and situations where now, baby, it's time to stand on business. This wasn't just some little weak squabble between siblings or some little weak squabble between family. One relative had left another relative for fucking dead. And had I not been able to fight for myself entirely, I would have died in that house. And God, I can not only imagine in a hypothetical how in the hell this nigga would have narrated the whole situation, because he would have been able to control the narrative since there was only me, him, and my grandfather in the house. I'm mortified at the fact that had I actually died in that fucking house, my relative could have had the creative right to tell lies, to say, oh my God, I intervened and I found him like this, and my family would have never fucking known that this person allowed me to take my last breath in their face. I didn't even want to understand where that level of apathy could even come from. I just knew I wanted zero relationship to anybody that had that in them for anyone, and definitely had it in them for me. So on top of my family not directing any question, any Q&A, any confrontation to this relative, my grandmother also fully expected me to recover from my appendix surgery and to go right back into that space to do what I had been doing for her and my grandfather. When I tell y'all, I had never been so betrayed and so terribly vexed and so heartbroken and distraught, especially since I'm a family person. I'm a communal person. I'm a people person. I'm a grandma's boy person. I'm a mama's boy person. I am a divine feminine loving person. And the fact that there was zero emotional awareness, there was zero emotional intelligence, there was zero fight for me, and yet the person who they had be of service to them, the person who was adding substantive service to the family, the person who wasn't sitting around taking nothing, but was giving unto myself in every single way possible, was still the person that these people couldn't even bring themselves to preserve by challenging the individual that had been given right to live in my grandfather's house, the right to get the fuck out. Because there was no redeeming quality in my relative's presence in that house to begin with. That relative was completely living off the hog, was not required to pay any bills, could eat off of my grandparents, live off of my grandparents, the whole fucking night. And guess what? To make matters worse, while I was recovering from my appendix surgery, my grandmother had looked to that relative to care for my grandfather during my time of recovery until I was well enough. And guess what? That person thought they had the audacity to demand and to request and to say to my grandmother while they lived in the home that my grandmother and grandfather owned, that relative told her, "You're gonna have to pay me." That relative who left me for fucking dead, who I helped to move into our grandparents' house, turned around and told my fucking grandmother that if she needed him to step in to care for his own loved one in her and her husband's home that he's dwelling in, laying up in, fucking in, smoking in, eating in, that he would have to be paid to do so. And do you know what my grandmother's people-pleasing, non-confrontational ass, enabling ass did? She brought my grandfather out to her home. And her and my uncle cared for him until I was better. My grandmother didn't put that motherfucker out. My grandmother acted like a hoe to a motherfucker's pimp. I was blown away by the non-existent backbone that yeah, his life is very shitty, Mo. Very, very, very shitty. So, mind you, as I'm getting better now, right? And at this point, I'm ready to go back in. I'm like thinking to myself, okay, clearly, you know, what's gonna be the plan? Because I know nobody don't think that it makes sense for me to want to go back into this space and live part-time to care for my grandfather when there's somebody down there who has demonstrated a capacity to want me dead. I know don't nobody think and think that's completely rational and logical. I know. Don't. But guess what, y'all? That's exactly what the fuck was expected of me. And do you know what I did? As somebody who's faithful, and as somebody who loved my grandmother, and somebody who loved my grandfather, and me understanding that my grandfather was really in need, and the only alternative to him not being able to be at home around his relatives, around his things, and be cared for by his relatives was to be in a home. But we had already been told that the elderly, when it comes to dementia and Alzheimer's, they do worse in facilities. They live longer and they do better and they thrive and they hold on more when they are in spaces that they're the most familiar with and have access to the people that they're most familiar with, which is their friends and family. That's why we decided to keep him in his home and just have me and my aunt care for him between the two of us. So as an empath, because you know we have a deep capacity, baby, to just be on our mission regardless of how fucked up, how mistreated, how betrayed, how fucked over, but because what's in us is real, because what's in us is real, because we really about that love and light life. You know what I did? Beyond the betrayal I felt, the deep disappointment I felt on top of the real life now concern I had for what it meant to be back in this space and share a living quarter with somebody who could leave me for dead because of the love for my grandfather. Am I understanding that my grandfather needed me? I put all that shit aside to go back into that space. And I stayed faithful to my commitment to my grandfather, beyond my own fears, beyond my own concerns, beyond all the fucking issues I now had on top of the issues I already had with the motherfuckers, until the bitter end. When my grandfather passed away, I didn't even go to the service, but I went to the burial ground. And I stood adjacent to my people, you know, said my goodbyes to my grandfather. The only person I spoke to at the burial, even though there were other relatives who had quote unquote not even did shit to me, but at that point I was just done. And I had told myself that the moment that my grandfather croaks, the moment that his ass transitions, the moment that the Lord decides to take him, whenever that will be, that's when I'm transitioning to. I am hauling ass and I am never looking back. I knew after I fulfilled my mission and stayed true and stayed faithful that I was out of there the minute that God wrapped all this shit up. So I spoke to my brother, who I love, who, you know, I'm going to be close to and support my, you know, for the rest of my life. And I spoke to my grandmother, even though I was deeply upset and I felt very betrayed by her doing absolutely nothing. And then I left. And that was the last time that I saw my family collectively. And it's been 6 years now. Since that time frame, y'all, they have beat my door down to get access to me. They have called me, they have texted me, they have chased me down to be a part of them. They have run me down for 6 years to the point that a few days ago, because this is what sent me into an interesting thought. I had got a voice. Somebody had called my phone. I didn't recognize the number, but my voicemail is set up to like transcribe the voicemail so that I can read the message. And it was a message from my aunt, who is now caring for my grandmother. And she was, saying, hey, call me back. I need to really talk to you. I haven't seen you and so and so and so. Your grandmother, she wants to hear from you, etc. Da 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 da. Now there are a few cousins that I also, have relationship to, and that's the only way between my brother and a few of my cousins that I'm in relationship to. They're like the middle people, and they're the ones who inform me about like what's going on still in the family. They're the ones who inform me that like everybody everybody is missing you, everybody's asking about you, everybody they want to know if you're coming to Christmas, if you're coming to Thanksgiving, if you're coming to I haven't been to anything. I haven't seen these people since my grandfather passed. And so I had ended up calling the number back thinking I was calling my aunt back, and I actually was calling my grandmother. And she answered the phone, and she was whimpered, she was frail, she was weak, she obviously was deeply aged. And immediately my grandmother started just pouring her heart out, like, Davi, I love you, and we always been close, we always talk, I miss you, I'm so happy to hear from you, I'm so happy to hear from you. I got so many things going on, I could barely breathe, and I have an appetite. And she just started like just trauma dumping and just pouring out to me, and it was all kind of tangled up in an update on all of these health issues that she have tied into her missing me and her expressing her love for me, her need for me. And I don't know how this is going to sound, but in being completely transparent, I had to pretend to miss them too, because I really didn't. My boundaries had been completely obliterated. I had been profoundly abandoned by my family, and nobody challenged the person that could have intervened in saving my life had I not been capable to save my life. And nobody ever apologized to me. Nobody ever said they were sorry. Nobody ever did anything. Everybody just ultimately swept it all under the rug, like they do everything else that has happened in the family. I was used, I was exploited, I was treated like a object and not like a human being that has a humanity. I was leeched on. I was just completely used as a emotional dumpster, on top of being left for fucking dead. And when my grandfather passed and I went over the hill into the marvelous light, and I hauled my ass out of there, I had nothing for my relatives. I was completely indifferent. I wasn't even angry. I was just completely indifferent. It's as if I had never known them. And as far as I was concerned, I didn't. Because before my personal betrayal and abandonment manifested in the most extreme way, which was watching nobody fight for me and cover me and protect me, this had completely obliterated everything that I thought I knew. And over the years, I sat and I sat and I sat and I sat and I sat in what happened to me. And the only thing that made me feel just a little better was the fact that I'm now just a part of a long line of people that got their shit swept under the rug. I'm talking about the same family where molestation has happened to people, rape has happened to people, all type of atrocities have happened to people. And I'm now just a part of the long line. I'm just another relative now who has my own trauma experience. I'm just another nigga with a number now. But I'm in good company, baby. Because like in most families, there's a bundle of people who never got advocated for, who never got interceded for, who never had the injustices done to them by their tribe members, amongst their tribe members, ever persecuted, ever confronted. And so that took a little bit of the edge off for me to realize that this wasn't personal. This was a part of a long generational pathology of denial, of not being principled, of people choosing their fears and their discomforts and choosing themselves over, even if it costed other individuals. People not wanting to upset their relationships to other people. People not wanting to be made responsible. Or people not wanting to have to possibly lose something that means something to them just to stand in solidarity with you regarding what's wrong and just evil. All that selfishness, all that greed, all that egotism. And I was just another motherfucker with the story to tell. So it also brought me great insight into why there is so much dysfunction in my family, why there's so much unhealed trauma in my family. And because of what I had been through and because of my nature just in being a spiritual person in general, I had used my personal experience to leverage me to officially like emancipate and divorce my relatives. Didn't want to be a part of the hive mind. Didn't want to be a part of something broken and fragmented and dehumanizing like this. Didn't want to be an enabler. didn't want to be a participator, and didn't want to sit in this knowing that the collective wasn't interested in forward moving. Instead, everybody wanted to be able to stew and marinate in the dysfunction. Everybody just wanted to stay responders to the dysfunction, but not transcend it. I didn't want to live alongside that. I didn't want to interact with that. I didn't want to make a home in hell. I didn't want to make a bed in hell. So 6 years later, surviving everybody begging for my attention, enduring everybody run behind me, and then still act stupid like they don't know why I don't fuck with them, acting like they don't know what the issues are. 6 years later, and I still feel indifferent. And that kind of bothered me mentally, because when I went to think about why do I feel so indifferent, why is there just no feeling, there's just no connection, there's no sentimental, there's not like it's like I was listening to a stranger that I never knew, that I don't have a history with. It was just complete. I was completely removed from it. And I realized it's because when I ran, but I did not do the shadow work. I just ran. Deep down, I feel that there is a capacity for me to not only forgive, which I've done personally, but when it comes to entertaining proximity and relationship to what I have left behind, I feel that there is possible capacity for some level of restoration to the collective that I left behind. The fact that there are some elders in my family that I do love, despite the fact that I am not actively engaging in relationship to them. I know that they have less time ahead than they do. And some part of me, after having that conversation with the elder in my family, made me think about if I need to be sure, because I also don't want to have any regrets if I get that phone call that people have transitioned. At the same time, I feel like there's nothing for me to regret because I didn't do this. I didn't do this. I didn't do this to us. I didn't do this to the relationship. Y'all did this. Y'all did this. Y'all painted this picture to me. But let me tell you what's interesting about love from dysfunctional people is that it's confusing like this. Because on one hand, the uncle that paid for your college tuition is the same uncle that molested you. There's that extreme duality of good and equally bad. And it makes you feel confused about what to do with these simultaneous good yet bad behaving people who have the capacity to, in one instance, act and personify complete love for you and put effort and energy towards your well-being, but at the same time can rape you of your dignity, and at the same time can hurt you in ways that are beyond conception. These are the things that I toy with in my mind, that I contemplate. What am I to do? What am I to do about these equally good yet bad behaving people who still seek me out? Because, of course, I'm one of the greatest lights they've ever known. Of course, I'm never surprised when people double back for me. I'm never surprised when people have the audacity to betray me, have the audacity to dishonor and disrespect me, and yet double back for me, because I know that they know that I'm one of the greatest assets that they're going to have and that they're going to manifest, whether they know how to treat me or not. And nobody with any lick of good sense would be able to settle with leaving me out of the equation entirely, because I'm too much of a resource to be left out entirely of the equation. And I don't know how to feel about equally good yet equally bad behaving people that I happen to love. I don't know what to do with that, because where I am right now and where I have been, but where I definitely am right now, is I have zero tolerance. Where I am right now, indefinitely, is I prefer to be good all by myself, because there's nothing but good when I am all by myself. Every headache, every injury, every issue in my life has always come from being personally connected to other motherfuckers. I've never had any personal issues of my own. When I reversed type 2 diabetes, that's because I had got into a love space with myself. When I'm in myself as myself and not being rudely interrupted by other motherfuckers' trauma body and other motherfuckers' fear bodies and other motherfuckers' pain body, when I am in me, I do miracles. When I am in me, the impossible becomes possible. When I am in me, I thrive. I have the Midas touch. All things go up for me. But when I embark, baby, upon other people, baby, people never add any redeeming quality to my life. It is a totally one-way street. There's always only one beneficiary in the relationship, and that's never me. It's always the other party. And this has been my life as an empath my whole life. Now, this is where things gonna get interesting again. This is the part of the conversation where things gonna get deeply philosophical. And I'm gonna give this to y'all because I want y'all feedback on where I'm about to pivot to. But I don't even want y'all to respond in real time. I want y'all to really chew on this. I want y'all to really just take time where I'm about to take this conversation. Because I think that it's one of those things that you have to really get beyond the surface of, and you got to really gnaw, and you got to really chew on that thing. So I want y'all to really, really, really hear me out. My whole life, right? Like most of us as lovers in this world, most of us as light workers, as bridgers, as healers, as magical beings, as empaths and super empaths. And thank y'all to everybody who in the chat, y'all. I'm trying to stay focused on my conversation, so I haven't been able to really, look at the chat. But I see you guys are putting so much of yourselves, and y'all are putting so much engagement into this. I'm gonna go back and watch the replay of this. Our whole lives, right, as light workers, we always been good to people. Always, always, always. We always made it easy to be good back to us in return because we do good. That should make things easy, right? That's the way that the world said the math is set up, right? Is that if you do good, you get good. If you be true, that shall be true to you. If you love, thou shall love you. If you compassion, thou shall be compassion to you. If you give, that shall be given too. That's been the structure, right? But most of us know that that's complete bullshit. Now, most of us know that that's all complete and utter bullshit, right? And my whole life, I never understood why it was bullshit. I never understood why simple 1 + 1 could not equal 2. I did not understand why for every love, I actually manifest betrayal. Why for every compassion, I manifest ignorance in return. Why for every giving, I am stolen from in return. Never understood the duality and polarity until I embarked upon spiritual development and spiritual and metaphysical philosophy and understood, oh my God, there is a such thing called polarity. And there is a law of polarity. And there is a law of opposition. And my whole life as an empath, while I've been operating, because I too am seeking out a love experience of the world. I too am seeking out myself in the world. I'm seeking out a safe place. I'm seeking out a trusting space. I'm seeking out a haven for myself too. Because I'm human and I need that shelter. I need the love resource as well. And I'm not ashamed to own that because I am not ashamed of my humanity. I used to be ashamed as an empath to have needs of my own. For some reason, I had this blockage about also needing that which I am and needing that which I give. I used to be ashamed of it. I'm not anymore. I'm not ashamed of my humanity. But I never understood the disproportionate bullshit until the law of polarity. And then I started thinking about why I always had this deep conviction about my Christianity. And I'm talking about, y'all, I have had a very metaphysical upbringing. I have been a very metaphysical person since I've been a child, been very psychic, been very prophetic, been always surrounded by signs and symbols and the supernatural. You know, I was literally known as that paranormal child. I would have experiences as a 7-year-old, as an 8-year-old, with Christianity that was almost equivalent to stigmatas when I was growing up. I had this very, before I even understood intellectually, had this deep connection to the suffering of Christ. This Christ figure, this philanthropist, this humanitarian, this beacon of love and light and hope, but yet this contrast that he manifested as somebody who was simply trying to do what was righteous, as somebody who was doing what was loving to do, and yet manifested this shadow in return, this eclipse in return, this rejection in return, this usury in return. I never knew as a child why I could deeply relate, and I felt, and I had a deep conviction about the concept of Christ and the cross and the life and the death and the resurrection and all of the dynamics around Yahshua's existence, until I became a more mature empath. And I realized that Yahshua, like so many other transcendent masters, so many divine incarnations of divinity, that like most of them, they're all super empaths, and some of the greatest empaths that have ever manifested in either the earth plane or in the consciousness of man, which is represented through religious symbolism, religious ideology, spiritual symbolism, spiritual ideology, that either manifested in the earth literally or manifested in the hearts and in the minds and in the spirits and in the consciousness of humanity. So here's what I want you to think about. Love. The word love. I spent the past few days asking the people in my life, what does that mean to them? Nobody could tell me. I was shocked but not surprised by this, because this is a term that gets used so flippantly and it gets used so strongly, and yet people don't even have a really objective definition of it. At best, they're just able to really tell you that they just know. They just know that they love. They just know that they love you. But they can't explain They can't quantify it. They can't nuance it. And their discernment of it is simply their awareness of it, but they have no idea how to articulate it. On one hand, that is an aspect of love, but on the other hand, that's severely problematic. Because you can't really know if you're actually loving if you have no real idea of what it really is. And there are so many things that are being called love that's not love. People call anything that they're attached to love. People think that love and attachment are synonymous. People think that love and transaction are synonymous. People think that love and codependency are synonymous, which is why I'm always asking people, what is love to you? How do you know? What is it? Because I'm aware of all of the things that people call love that are not, in fact, actually love. But this is the way they've conceptualized and contextualized love. I too have had to contemplate my whole life what really is love. And for me, love in the most hooked on phonics, practical illustration of love. Love is the collective embodiment of all virtue. Love is the collective embodiment of all virtue, whether that be compassion, empathy, charity, service, forgiveness, mercy, understanding, righteousness. That love is the collective embodiment and personification of virtue. With that being said, this is where shit gets scary. There was a movie. Matter of fact, I'm going to pull it up on the screen here because this movie really fucked me up. This movie really fucked me up. And I want to thank, I just got a donation. I want to thank my baby mother, Sunflower Market. Thank you so much for you are loved and appreciated by us. Know this. I do know that, baby. And I thank y'all. And this is why I shared this with y'all, because I know that y'all see me, I see y'all, we see each other. And I felt that my relationship to y'all was ready for this and could handle this. And I know that the conscious crew is very compartmentalized, right? I know that not everybody subscribed to the channel is a tribe member. You know, there are people who are just general to the platform. There are people who are here for particular niches, you know, hot topics, celebrity gossip, etc. And then there's like within that this subculture of deeply spiritual, hyper aware, extremely lucid, highly developed spiritual, intellectual, and empathic individuals. And I was actually recently encouraged to create a community out of that, to actually isolate that community and to grow and foster that community. I'm still kind of unpacking that. But I know that my people, my real tribe is also inside all of this with me. Army of empaths. Yes. I want to talk to y'all about this movie because it's going to tailor back into where I'm going with this love thing and this Christ thing, because this is where shit gonna get real freaky. Real freaky. Martyrs. Let me see here. Martyrs. Have you guys ever heard of a movie called Martyrs? It's a 2008 film. I'm going to read the description of this film from the Wikipedia page. Martyrs is a 2008 French language psychological horror film written and directed by Pascal Lugier, starring all these people whose name I'm not about to butcher. It follows a young woman's quest to seek revenge against individuals who abducted and tortured her as a child and her friend, also a victim of abuse. It is listed as a psychological thriller and horror film. Has anybody ever watched this movie? Baby, when I tell y'all that this mother-loving movie turned me every which way but goddamn loose and unlocked a very difficult truth that I struggled to swallow, and I'm still amidst the swallowing of the truth and the possibility of the reality of what the love thing really is about in this earth. You've watched it, Star Goddess. I encourage every empath, every person who is of service in this world, whether you are a doctor, a nurse, a social worker, a firefighter, a police officer, if you operate in any occupational role that is of service, a pastor, a deacon, community organizer, an advocate, an activist, I encourage anybody who is in the role of servitude to watch this motherfucking movie, because I think this movie is only going to, I think this movie can only do what it did to me to people who are in deep service to humanity, who are in deep service, who are in, if you are a doer and a giver and a fixer-upper, if you are a healer in any capacity, in whatever capacity you are, baby, I think only those personality types are going to be hit and be brought into a deep, uncomfortable reality check and contemplation about what it truly means to love. We bootlegged it. So there are streaming services like 123 Movies that may have this. I'm gonna go and figure out if it's streamable on the platforms that I use to watch movies. And if I find it, I will definitely do another video, and I would provide that link to everybody. But it should be available on like those 123 movie sites, you know, those bootleg sites that be uploading everybody's shit. Thank you so much, baby mother, Miss Mata, for the old nasty child support check. You are loved. Thank you so much, Voice of Reason. Thank you, baby. I love you so much. God bless you. So let's talk about this movie in concluding this commentary. So somebody showed me this movie a few years ago, and basically, like the description on Wikipedia says, it stars two main characters. One of the females is deeply traumatized. She's haunted by her past. She's been abused profoundly, and she has these like really gross hallucinations of this really twisted demonic haunting force that tortures her. And this is all like happening in her mind. And then there's like this other female character who is adjacent to this character who gets abducted in the movie. She's abducted by this secret cult and society that specializes in trying to understand what the meaning of life is. And so what they do is they take people who they think have a potential to be martyrs, who have a potential for martyrdom, which are people who selflessly give their lives, give themselves in profound service to humanity, even if it costs them their very life. Jesus Christ, Yeshua, would be a martyr. Martin Luther would be a martyr. You know, all of our Black civil rights leaders ultimately would be martyrs, you know. So it takes people who they believe have a potential for martyrdom and puts them through various levels of tortures. And this is a French movie, you guys. So this movie is very graphic, very intensely graphic, baby. Them French movies do not play, baby. If y'all think, baby, they make American rated R movies look like Teletubby episodes, girl. So this is these movies goes ball to the wall, baby. So the secret underground society made up of these rich elites who are trying to extract the meaning and the purpose of life through taking people as close into death as they possibly can, so in hopes that they would have a near-death experience and be able to come back to tell about it. And they arouse this NDE in the people they force to participate in this with through ritualistic abuse. So they torture these people. They deprive them of food. They beat them. They hurt them. They put them through all type of torture methods. They induce deep trauma in these people. And the sign that people are ready for the final stage of martyrdom is when the participants finally give in to the torture willingly, when they no longer put up a fight, when the Grand Master, when the executor comes into their chambers to do the daily ritualistic abuse of them, when they don't have any resistance anymore. They allow themselves to be beat, to be stomped, to be burnt, to be fully subjected. They fully are submissive to the abuse. There's no longer any level of fight left. Then they take those people who are now considered martyrs through their ability to willingly submit to pain and to suffering. Now, y'all already probably seeing how this lines up in the underbelly of the life of Yahshua, whose whole life was about servitude, bringing people into alignment and self-actuality of the multi-infinities of God. The super empath who committed to love despite the judgment from its community, the betrayal from its brothers. And that the same world that it came to save was the same world that was committed to absolutely destroying it. And the commitment to love them even in the worst of themselves, even at the most grotesque personifications of a low vibrational society, to still love them till the end. You can already see the underbelly and the theme of this movie, right? So once these forced participants finally submit to the pain and the suffering, they're no longer resistant. They're no longer offending for themselves. They're not even trying to fight back. Now the secret society then qualifies them for the final stage of martyrdom, which is now to bring them as close into death as possible. And what they do in this final stage of martyrdom is they peel the top layer of these people's skin completely off of their bodies, strip them of their actual flesh. The top layer of their flesh is peeled completely off of their bodily form. And from there, as a result of this consistent ritualistic abuse, now with the trauma, the profound trauma happening to the body, one of the main characters in the movie now is taken into death. And this is going to be spoilers, y'all, but I'm telling y'all, this movie, it don't matter if I even spoil it for y'all. There is nothing that I can say that is going to take away the bizarreness and the epicness of this movie. It is a experience in and of itself. It's almost like describing to somebody a roller coaster. It don't matter how descriptive I get, baby. It is not going to do you being on that roller coaster for yourself any justice. It is experiential in nature. I thought about that movie and I said, my God, today. My God, to goddamn day. Is this actually what the fuck all of us as empaths have unknowingly in our unconscious actually signed up for? Is this actually the purpose of all incarnated souls? Which is why that old question of, why would God make evil? Why would God make evil? Why would God do something like that? Why would the creator make evil? Why would the creator create wickedness? Why would it create it? Why would it create it? Why would it create it? Because that evil is meant to make a God out of you. That wickedness is meant to be the pressure to the becoming of your full divine Godhead manifested self. Because it is possible that true, fully matured, agape, all-encompassing love is completely and utterly void of transaction. When Christ says, do unto them good, even if they do bad unto you, pray for those who hurt you. Love those who don't love you. Turn the other cheek. What the great iconic divine personification known as Yahshua is asking all those who hear the call to do is to martyr for the world. Faith will get you received by God, but your works will prove that you are that which is God. So let's bring this full circle a little bit. As I'm contemplating what to do with all these equally bad yet good behaving people in my life, I think about the fact that I've hidden myself from them. I think about the fact that even in my love, I have also operated with the expectation to be loved in return, which is not entirely inappropriate. However, where it becomes nuanced at is deep down, even beyond my own defense mechanisms, deep down beyond my need to preserve myself. I know that I came to be a superhero. Deep, deep down, I know I didn't come to be a receiver of that which I am, but I came to give all that I am. Deep down, I know I've been called to be a first responder. And first responders don't think about what they can get in return. Their jobs are to go in to the womb, to go in to the fire, to go toward the storm, to save somebody, if not everybody, with the willingness to put their life on the line for the sake of saving everybody else. that takes a level of maturity that I'm still wrestling with in my spirituality and in my humanity. Because my humanity wants to be saved too. My humanity wants the reciprocity too. My humanity wants the inheritance of trusting, loving people who have the capacity and an interest in saving me too. But the divine part of me knows that as much as I want those things in order to justify putting myself on the line, that the things that I think I need and the things my humanity yearns for can do this without those needs being met. Because I am not human first, and neither are you. We are divine first. We are already whole to begin with. There is nothing, in fact, missing. The only thing there is to be is of service, deep service. All that is necessary to give has already been given to us, like the light of the sun, the seed of the soil, the richness of the air. God has given everything in nature, everything that it needs to be nature, just like Spirit has given all of us everything that is required to be what we're called to be. There is nothing truly missing. It is the illusion of the ego. There is no actual need. It is the illusion of the ego, cultivated by a ego body that becomes eventually a pain body. So when I think about protecting myself from a family that has laid me down, that has betrayed me, that has abandoned me, that has forsaken me in my time of great need, yes, I ran. Yes, I've hidden myself. But sometimes I think, am I just being dramatic? Because deep down, I know that it's not personal. Deep down, I know that these people wrestle not with me, they wrestle with principalities and wickedness that resides in the high places. I know that it's not about me. And yet, because I have an ego simultaneously imposed upon a divine self, my ego takes it personal. But my spirit is unmatched, and my spirit is uninjured. And so that complex dichotomy between the authentic self and the whole self and the real self, and then this illusionary self that we cultivate in order to navigate society. This illusionary self that we cultivate in a world that requires identity politics, that requires us to identify ourselves by sexuality, by race, by creed, by belief, by nationality. And then when we are incubated in a more secular society, is it no wonder how we get knotted up so bad between our spiritual selves and our inauthentic selves, and why there's so much stop, break, in and out, so much, as we would say, hypocrisy, contradictory. And it's really the added social engineering of the culture that creates a lot of that duality, because it's participating and pressuring us to cultivate a fake self, to survive its fake simulated matrix reality, in contrast to the true self. And because biologically we're also biological entities, we're mammals, we're warm-blooded entities, we are a pack species. So we have a capacity to conform. We have a capacity to adapt, to mold ourselves according to the expectations of the gatekeepers of our tribe. But if those tribe members are secular and disjointed and non-spiritual and debased and rooted in materiality, as a pack species who naturally like to run in packs, we like to run in bundles. That's why we're born into families, we're born into societies, we create communities. We end up, unfortunately, and sometimes unbeknownst to us, identifying deeply with the false self as a result of going along to get along and following the establishments that are already established in the world. But because we are psychic beings, we are frequency and vibration, we are neurons and atoms that are held together by the invisible properties of a hyper dimensional reality. Even if we participate in the deep indoctrination of the matrix, we always still feel the contrast. We still feel the disconnectedness. And we may not can identify with words, but we always feel like something ain't right. Even if we allow ourselves to be indoctrinated into the flow, you never escape this yearning, this void, this other voice, this other government, this other thing that is whispering to you. That is you. But because of all the added pressure there is to assimilate to the matrix, to appease your families, to appease the expectations of your culture, to appease the expectations of your community. Most people generally live a disjointed, bipolar life as a result of all of the mixed messaging from the synthetic reality that is in contrast to the authentic reality. And that's why spiritual enlightenment is not for the faint of heart. It is not also as romantic as Hallmark commercial spirituality will make enlightenment seem. Everything in this world comes with a price. And because the world that is the general world, the dominant reality, there is a price that you are going to pay for being in the truth. Your life is going to change. It's going to change your interests. It's going to change your social dynamics. Waking up and becoming lucid can turn everything in your life upside down, and you have to be prepared and to know that that's a possibility. Because I want to tell you the truth about enlightenment. I want to tell you the truth about lucidity. I want to tell you how your ass waking up and quantum leaping in your damn consciousness and transmutating and ascending in consciousness, it could change your very marriage. Because the person you married in your unconscious self is not the person who is compatible with the authentic self. Those relationships you cultivated to so-called friends, to so-called family may change profoundly because the person that they're in relationship to and was in relationship to was the inauthentic, non-higher version of yourself. And now in your transcendence and lucidity, that compatibility is no longer there. And because you didn't know you were co-creating out of your lower self, out of your inauthentic self, out of your non-lucid self, you have no idea that when you chose to wake up and to be true to thy own self and to know thy own self and to open thy eye and to allow thy eye to be filled with light, you had no idea that it would obliterate the Barbie dream house. You had took so much time to carefully and meticulously create for yourself because you had no idea you were not even in your real self. You made the mistake of thinking that you were just a one-dimensional entity and a one-dimensional being with a one-dimensional personality, with a one-dimensional way of existing until you dilly-dabbed and quantum leaped off the ledge and took a chance and discovered the multifaceted and the multi-infinities of your conscious awareness. And because nobody told you about the multi-infinities of your being, nobody ever told you that there was going to be a price for waking up in a synthetic, man-made reality. Everything from your marriage to your social circle to your damn life career may change in the blink of an eye. And y'all have heard this from plenty of people who have done just that, baby. They went from making 6 figures at NASA, working in nuclear physics, to now being holistic doctors, living in Timbuktu as an author, successful world traveler, and holistic healer. What a stark contrast, baby. From a successful life as a nuclear physics to a goddamn witch doctor. Living off the earth. Went from identifying strongly with the Matrix and the Ferraris and the BMWs and the lavish living to now being a minimalist, living off the herbs and living off of the earth itself. I'm here to tell y'all that enlightenment is deeply transformative, and your life may get very uncomfortable, and that there is a price to pay for lucid living. You will be amongst the minority now. You won't fit in most places in this world. You won't belong amongst most people in this world. Thank God for the internet. There is opportunity to easily more locate, right, like-minded people. But in general, you have to be really good at being alone to be lucid, because you won't fit into most spaces. You won't fit into most groups. You won't gel beyond a surface level with most people. You actually prefer, as a result of seeing how much of an epidemic of matrix living people there is, you actually will grow to prefer to actually be to yourself. Because most people are not willing to join you in where you've gone, and where you've been, and where you've arrived. Most people won't be able to relate to what it is you have now, who it is you are now, what your priorities and your focuses are. Your math won't math like theirs. Y'all don't come to the same conclusions. Y'all don't identify and agree to what the problem is. As you become more lucid, you become more exact and precise in what the underbelly of the issues are. While most people just want to treat the symptoms, they're going to think you a fool. Lucidity raises the bar. Matrix living people are trying to talk you out of your spot to get you to come down to them again by telling you that you're being unrealistic. And that's okay, baby. Because I'd rather be unrealistic and will be alone as a result. Because what I'm not going to do is come back down. I would rather be up here and alone than to be down there with the scraps. I would rather be up here and alone than to be down there with the leftover remains. I don't eat from the hand of my master at the table. I'm at the table. I eat from no man's hands. And if the price of self-awareness and the price of personal integrity and dignity results in thy being alone, then thy be alone, because the reality is thy is truly actually not alone. Thy actually is spared. Thy actually is saved. Thy actually is one. Because separatism is in fact an illusion as well. And you eventually learn that as you level up in lucidity, as you mature up in consciousness. See, most people are shocked that I have this aspect of myself because I do so much cutting the goddamn fool up here. But this is the real Davion. This is Davion. Most people forget that I am this because my predominant content on social media is pop culture. But this is the man behind and beyond the persona. And I will be transitioning my work in the next phase of my life into being an author, into being a teacher, and to traveling once again and doing workshops and seminars around self-development, self-becoming. So I want you guys to have a realistic view. And grand rising to everyone coming in. Grand rising to everybody coming in. And grand love and light to you all. I have fantastical things in store for you all. I've been working so hard on what I've been working on behind the scenes in terms of pivoting into my spiritual career. From books to affirmations to mantras to merchandise. There's an entire world and brand that I'm going to be rolling out that is absolutely fabulous. And it's provocative. And everything about what I've been working on is intended to arouse deep introspection and contemplation. These are the things that break up some of the monotony and the energetic blockages. You know, the reason why most people are dense is because most people are not being challenged. Most people are not actually contemplating. They're not asking themselves the heavy questions. They're not asking themselves the deeper things. You know, enlightenment starts with curiosity. Curiosity is the pathway to healing. Curiosity is the pathway to God. You know how many people I've been able to bring to tears just by asking the deeper questions? You know how many people's faces I've seen just fall away from themselves because I've been able to get them into a hypnotic trance just based upon asking them the appropriate questions. And it gives them the opportunity to go down the rabbit hole of thought, the rabbit hole of spirit, the rabbit hole of consciousness. It's so interesting how God is just literally one right thought away from us, one right question away from us. The veil between us and all that is just one question away. One bold, curious move away. So, in part 2 of this conversation, I want us to contemplate martyrs. I want you guys, in the meantime, hey Joshua, hey Boo, I see y'all down there. I want y'all, in between part 2 of this conversation, I want y'all to watch this movie Martyr. And I want y'all to tell me how y'all feel about the possibility that to love is to love unto personal destruction. It's the true mature nature of love. It's to transcend transaction. It's to transcend expectation. Can your love endure suffering to the end? Can your love freely? Is your love truly and fully charitable? And would you still love even if you knew you would never get any of it back? Are you prepared to love without getting it back? Could you stand up in love in the face of a zero balance? I'll check that out, Star Goddess. Anubis and the weighing of hearts of death. I'm gonna screenshot that so I can research that. Thank you for that, Star. And most people say yes, Jazz. Most people, but I want y'all to truly know on that, because I'm gonna tell y'all, for me, that's been one of the most challenging things as an empath. I love to love. I love deeply. I love unapologetically. I'm rewarded when I love. I feel the most accomplished when I'm actively loving, when I'm providing, when I'm contributing, when I'm giving, when I'm being. I love it. But baby, my God, today, y'all. When I think about the highest level of love, which is the willingness to love, even if them hoes gonna put you on that cross. The willingness to love, even if them hoes gonna leave your ass to burn alive in that house on fire. The willingness to love the worst of them. Could you love your rapist? Could you love your abuser? Could you love your abandoner? Because that's what most of the great mystics did. They walked in a unwavering love. And like Christ, baby, they didn't say it's no easy task, baby. That's the one thing I can say about the Christ figure, baby. Like many of them, baby, they ain't never said it was no easy feat. Like Christ called it a cross. Christ said, baby, you follow me, baby, it's gonna be pain and suffering, sugar. Christ said, just remember, when them sorry ass niggas that you love betray you, sell you the fuck out, just know they did it to me first. And let me tell you, baby, that sounds easy until it's your manifested until it's your manifested destiny, baby. It sounds all good, right? It sounds, everybody sound already up. Everybody sound ready to go, baby, in the hypothetical until it becomes the manifested, until it becomes the manifesto. And you sitting your ass in that damn adversity. And you ready to go full on Dark Phoenix apocalypse and devour and singe and burn the damn world down to smithereens. But is that what we're really being called to? Are we being called to love in such a way that it transcends transaction? And would you be willing to endure the worst of this world and still show up in the best of yourself? For God's sake. For your true nature's sake. How many of us are going to survive this cruel, dark, cold, lonely, unequally yoked world without it soiling and spoiling us in return? Because we're being tried by fire here. We're being tried by fire. I'm going to be even more transparent. I had gotten so... I had allowed myself to feel everything that I was feeling. And I gave myself permission to be true to my sadness, true to my grief, true to the things that troubled my humanity in this world, because it's hard. You know, some of the events over the past few days, they had aroused and had upset me. And I gave myself full permission to embrace the shadow, because there's also data, there's information, and there's divinity in the darkness too. And in my self-loathing, you know, I was telling a friend, I said, you know, because my friend said, CTV, what, you know, I love you. I need you. What will make this experience here well for you? And in my self-loathing, I said, the only thing that'll make me happy is God coming to get me. Because I'm not personally enjoying my experience. And I know the only reason that I'm here, despite the fact that I'm not enjoying myself, is because I have purpose. And I'm going to be faithful to that purpose, whether I'm happy or not, because happiness is a fleeting thing. I'm mature enough to understand what I'm called to. I'm mature enough to understand what the assignment is. I'm not always happy on assignment. I'm not always pleased with the assignment. And what has become healthy for me is allowing myself to complain, because for decades, I thought I had to be happy with it. I now know I get to complain as much as I want to, as long as I'm going to be faithful. I now understand, baby. I get to holler. I get to scream. I get to talk shit. I get to say every bitch, hoe, nigga, as long as I'm going to be faithful, though. As long as the way I feel ain't infringing upon my faithfulness. I can be as miserable and upset as I motherfucking want to be. And that has been relieving. And I know that sometimes as lovers of, you know, as light workers, as healers, we do have complexities around allowing ourselves to be angry. We feel guilty. We feel like we're not operating in our highest nature just because we're angry, just because we're upset, just because we're sad. I want to tell you, stop judging yourself. You get to have a humanity. You get to be pissed the fuck off. You get to call it right down the motherfucking middle. You get to be a whole thoroughbred. You get to be a ball buster. You get to call motherfuckers to the carpet. You are, in fact, the cleanup crew. And you do get to feel sorry for yourself. You get to have compassion for yourself. You get to have empathy for yourself. Because not having that empathy is what's going to cause you cause you to neglect your self-care if you don't give yourself permission. Hey, Pronor, hey, boo. If you don't give yourself permission to check in on your condition. So have enough empathy for yourself to be mad as hell. Have enough empathy for yourself to be sad as hell. Have enough empathy for yourself to give yourself permission to the full spectrum and the full range of human emotion. Because it's not about your ability to traverse that emotional spectrum. All that really matters is your faithfulness. And if being on that emotional spectrum does not infringe upon your faithfulness to what you called to what you are assigned to, then baby, cry as much as you need to cry, cuss as much as your ass need to cuss, feel whatever it is you need to feel. But in all that you feel, be true to thy own self. Be true to your purpose. Nope, it is not easy. Nope, it is not always enjoyable. Nope, it is not always pleasurable. Nope, it is not always fun. Because we here standing on business. And we doing for real work in the lives of our communities, in the lives of our family, in the lives of the people that we're called to. This ain't child's play. So there are real feelings. There are real injuries. So give yourself full permission to humanity. Yahshua certainly did. Yahshua was known as the weeping prophet. So I don't allow people to tell me what the fuck I don't have a right to feel. I feel. I don't allow people to slander my ability for emotional capacity, because it's actually what makes me healthy. I have enough compassion and enough emotional intelligence to give myself permission to feel and to be present in my feeling. And it doesn't infringe upon my ability to be logical, to be rational. And because I am able to acknowledge and go into my feeling and extract information and data and revelation out of my feeling capacity, I'm able to make a better, more informed, logical conclusion or take a more even refined logical action. And your emotional body is necessary to bring your logical self full circle. Because there's information in your emotion. G-Man News says, I just had a moment last week, which was my get to the pinned up frustration over these nickels. Oh my God, I needed this. Got in bed and was led to check out the YouTube, and here we are. And you call them nickels. You be true in your humanity, ya bitch, ya knuckle, you baby. You no shame. No shame, G-Man. Baby, be true to thy own self, but yet be faithful. Be faithful, baby. You can feel how you want to feel because it's your right to feel. But be faithful. And as long as your feeling does not infringe upon your being, does not infringe upon your commitment, this does not infringe upon your faithfulness to that which you called to, you are absolutely entitled to all that you feel and all that comes from the work that you do in the capacity in which you do it. I feel sorry for people who don't feel. Matter of fact, the people who are more cerebral are actually more fucked up than they realize because they're so disjointed and disconnected from their divinity. Matter of fact, co-creating actually requires the marriage between the heart and the mind. It's not all cerebral. It's not all intellect. It's all also in the nuclear power of the emotional body, which gives weight and density and substance to the things we're concentrated on, the things we envision within our mind's eye. You need your feeling body to add the substance to your thoughts. But a lot of times we vilify our capacity for emotion because a lot of times because people are not disciplined in their emotions oftentimes derail them from their faithfulness. It derails them from their commitments. And that's why emotions get a bad name. But baby, when you can master your cerebral and be a master of your emotional body, and you know how to surfboard the mental and surfboard the emotional, baby, and when you know how to bring that divine masculinity, the left hemisphere of your brain, your logic, your reason, your thinking, your intellect, and merge that with your divine feminine, your creative, your intuitive, your nurture, your mysticalness, baby, you get a powerhouse motherfucker. You get a powerhouse motherfucker. You get a weapon of mass destruction, baby. You get a bad motherfucker. So, this actually went really excellent, y'all. I was a low-key concerned when I started this live because I said, I don't know. I didn't know how to begin this. I didn't know how to enter into this discussion. I didn't know a lot. This was, I'm proud. I'm proud of the way this unfolded for 2 hours and 54 minutes. I feel so good. I feel real good about it. I feel real good about it. Yep. I feel good about it. I'm glad that I did this. And I want you guys to pray for me. I want you guys to keep me in your prayers. I have so much responsibility that you guys have no idea about. I have so much pressure on me that you guys have no idea about. And I'm sure of myself. I'm sure of my ability to do everything that I'm called to. But I'm also just as much of a man as I am just as much a piece of God. And so pray for my well-being. Pray for my clarity. Pray for my discernment. Pray for my strength. Pray. Pray for me. Keep me in your prayers. Thank you, G-Man. Thank you for all of the long time support. I have a lot of things that I juggle, and I have a lot of responsibility. Keep me in your prayers, please. And keep all of your loved ones and yourself in prayers. Y'all, we are entering into very peril times, as I've said in the past. We're about to enter into another dark period, into another dark age. It's going to be a time of great rebellion, upheaval. The stress inducers are going to be very strong. Lots of people are not going to pass the test to ascend. And instead, they're going to get locked into their lower selves, and they're going to be raising hell on the earth for those who are well. There's going to be a lot of sick people in the world. There's going to be a lot of people, as the scriptures say, God desires that no man shall perish, but many will. Many will. And living alongside those who are perishing is going to be a feat of patience, capacity. These are going to be very trying times. And if they're going to be trying times on us as adults, they're going to be even more trying on these young people, baby. So if y'all are creating families, if y'all have kids, I want y'all to know y'all are going to have to be top tier on these kids and on these young people. They are dealing with stimuli that is very unique to their generation, that has never been dealt with by any previous generation. They're dealing with the added stimuli of social media, which is an entire catastrophe in and of itself. They're dealing with a great level of accessibility to things that were not even available to us at all. So there's a level of privilege, there's a level of indulgence, but there's also a higher level of contamination for their innocence and pollution of their consciousness. These young people are going to need in you very strong mentorship. And not a mentorship that is do as I say and not as I do, but a mentorship that is integral enough to make sure that what they say is what they do. The quality of leadership, the quality of demonstration. This coming era is challenging. And calling us higher. Yep. The world is finna straight turn into Gotham. The jokers are going to be jokering. The two-faced are going to be two-facing. Yeah. People are unaliving themselves for much less. It's a great time of violence. Every day, some child to unalive they parent, some parent to unalive they child, spouses unaliving one another, neighbors unaliving one another. There's an assault on our bodies. There's an assault on our food. There's an assault in our skies. There's an assault on our psychology. It's going to be a time of great unveiling and truth, but it's also going to be a time of deep, deep, deep deception. The scriptures say, if it were possible that the elect be deceived, they would be, if it were possible. Because there's going to be so much grand deception and smoke and mirrors and misinformation and narcissism and gatekeeping and narrative controlling in the world. This is the time for true and deep alignment, you guys. And my computer just told me that the battery is dying, so I'm glad to know that my MacBook strength is 3 hours. But this was riveting. Stay prayed up, stay in touch, you guys. Stay hopeful, stay faithful, take care of yourself, please. Take care of each other. I love you all. We got mess to get into later. We got all this Tony Busby, Jay-Z stuff to get into, baby. And we're going to get into all of it. Hey, Mel, NC. Hey, Love. Hey, Voice of Reason. Hey, Yawad. Hey, Cammy. Be vigilant. Palace, April. And you guys already know, y'all can show some love to the king if you want to. Shout out to all of my contributors and donators. Y'all know all of the Cash App and PayPal is in the description box below us on the screen. Please subscribe, tell a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend. We're going to be back for part 2. Y'all gnaw on love. I want y'all to gnaw on that thing. Gnaw on love. And if you believe that love is supposed to ultimately, in its more maturest form, transcend transaction. And we'll talk about that in part 2. I don't know when the part 2 will come. I'm going to give y'all time to watch that movie, Martyr and everything. But y'all just stay tuned to the platform, and we'll definitely be back for part 2 of this discussion. I'll see you all later. Peace.